Hello, you jerks, and welcome back to another episode of Valtimore. I'm just kidding about the whole jerk thing, by the way. You are all wonderful people. Oh man, during our last session, we talked a whole lot, and we made this part of the city and down there and such. Of course, we need to speed things up a little bit in order for stuff to actually pop in. But I want to inform you that this little sliver of land, which isn't that little, but compared to everything, I guess it's kind of smallish, is all we have left to develop. Once we've got that, the entire city of Valtimore will be done. And once Valtimore is done, it'll be just left to tasks such as making sure everybody has water and good services. So we will attempt to make sure that we have as many medium and high wealth people that we can before we leave this city to go on to other things. That is, if people around here are eager to see me do some other cities. Because, like I said, I've had other ideas for SimCity. I've already told you what a lot of them were. A max population city, a Venice type city. There were probably others, but they don't pop into my mind right now. And I want to sort of gauge how much interest there is for stuff like that before I go out and do them. Just because, you gotta give the people what they want. However, even if there is a demand for me to do a lot of those cities, I also kind of want to get going with some of the new stuff that I've been talking about in the last few episodes. Oh man. And the other thing that I wanted to mention was I forgot in my last little series of episodes to put out a plug for my secondary channel, which is Bone Canoe After Dark. Yes. Actually, now that I think about it, I might have mentioned it, but even if I did mention it, I'm mentioning it again, because it is that funny, folks. It is a very unscripted version of myself. More unscripted even than this is. A lot more. So, and I'm getting pretty close to uploading the real funny episode to the Fallout stream, where I rage against against being confused, I guess, for the most part, and it's quite funny. In fact, by the time I upload this episode, I might have already uploaded those parts. So I will try to remember to link some of the best moments in the chat, so those of you who are curious to see don't have to go digging around for it, because I'm pretty happy about it. Yes, we're going to put small little industrial zones here and there to cut down on commute times. Not that it matters too much in a city such as this, but no, I don't want to drive the car right now. It's definitely going to help us out. We're going to make everything nice and groovy. Yeah, this city would be kind of difficult to navigate for anyone who doesn't stay on the main roads. Just because everything is pretty nonsensical. I mean, you have to admit it's part of the thing we got going on here. And the other idea I had that I mentioned before, but I'm going to mention it again because I like the sound of my own voice, I guess, is the idea of doing what you might consider an alternate Valtimore, where, let's say, whatever regime was in place that demanded low density all across the world has been abolished, and now people can build high, medium and high density to their heart's desire. Because it would kind of be interesting to take this city that we've created and convert it to a, I'm really pleased with myself about this, by the way, convert it to a medium and high density, primarily high density city, and what that would entail in terms of traffic engineering and all that stuff. Because I find that fun, the problem solving nature of how am I going to build roads to and mass transit and other infrastructure to accommodate this larger city that we now have. If you haven't noticed, building up the transportation is my favorite part of SimCity, and it's something I've always been interested in. Roads, rails, just any kind of transportation. It's a very, you might call it an obscure branch of nerddom, but yes, this kind of nerd does exist, and I am one of them, and I've met a few others in my life. One thing that I like to do, and I don't even know if I've mentioned this in an episode, I can't recall having mentioned this, is I often like to draw free-form maps. Just, take a piece of paper, or better yet, something larger like a poster size paper, and just draw free-form maps of places on them. They might be, any number of scales. My favorite scale to draw in is just sort of a roadmap type scale. When you're looking at all the roads within a particular area. So a sheet of paper might cover like a couple square miles, And that is something that I have done since I was a kid. And it's just fun. Is there any deeper point to doing it? Maybe not, but I enjoy doing it, so I do it. And that's what I talk about when I sometimes joke about a pen and paper SimCity, because it's essentially what it is. I mean, I'm not deciding where low and high density is going to be and all that, but there is an art to it. There definitely is, because you get working out where all the, how a city develops over time, and you start thinking, I look at my old maps that I used to draw, and they looked very unrealistic. But I could, by this point, draw some pretty modern looking, some pretty realistic looking cities. And it's fun. I find it fun. Because I think about how the city has developed over time. Because I don't like to draw like perfect model cities. I like to draw realistic cities. So you can see just by looking at the roads that there's a history behind what I'm drawing. So that is one thing I do. Of course, that doesn't really translate well into SimCity, as you're bounded by the limitations of the game, but when you're doing it on pen and paper, you can do anything you want. You can have any kind of city. It's pretty neat. So that is something neat that I do, and this is where we have audience participation time. Yes. Okay, audience. I want you in the comments to please tell me one of your interesting or unusual hobbies or activities, whatever it might be. Just anything you do that is not your usual run-of-the-mill activity. I want to hear about it, just because I'm curious what's out there that people do. Yes, I am. So that is your homework. Yes. And by the bylaws of the Bone Canoe channel, you are required to answer. If you don't think that I know Oh, trust me, I have my ways of finding out. So, don't tell me you weren't forewarned. Yes. But no, it would just be interesting to hear the things that people are into. 'Cause I've always been curious about such things. Oh man. So I am making roads here. Earlier today I was watching the GSL, which is a StarCraft tournament. I'm sure none of you care about it, but I don't know, I like to watch it. And like between matches, when nothing's going on, they do this thing, they put music on, and you'd think it would be like K-pop or something, because this is obviously a Korean tournament with Korean players and all that. But no, it's like these strange, vaguely Christian power ballads from like the 80s and 90s that I've never heard before, and it's just very strange and out of place for StarCraft tournament. And half the fun of it is that whenever one of these comes on, is the Twitch chat for these events goes nuts. Like everyone pretends to be all like emotional from all these power ballads, and it's just like it's possibly the silliest thing. Like I don't get it, but and I'm serious. Like most of these songs I've never actually heard anywhere, but it's just funny. It tickles my tickle bone. That sounded vaguely not good, but that's okay. So that is kind of entertaining to me, and I can't believe that Innovation is out. Well, I can kind of believe it. He's been a little rusty recently, and you probably don't know who he is or what I'm talking about. But that's okay. I have said before that I love to hear myself talk, so I'm going to talk and chit and chat with all of you. Oh man. At points, I've considered actually doing a StarCraft campaign like for reals and uploading it to my channel. However, the most likely thing I'm going to end up doing is streaming it and then relegating it to the Bone Canoe After Dark channel, which might be considered the catch-all channel for all irregular content that wouldn't necessarily go onto my main channel. Not that anything could be considered regular content at this point, because everything has gotten so damn irregular, but be that as it may, it would still be a good idea. And I was thinking a lot about a lot of the other games I play, mostly platformers, that might get relegated to a similar spot. Although I will be uploading the Sonic directly onto Bone Canoe. I think that, at least, might be interesting enough for the masses. And so that is the plan at this moment. So hopefully none of you are too annoyed by it. Oh, you're facing a weird way. I guess that means you're putting a street there. Yeah. It's the easiest way to solve any problems. Do you guys remember in SimCity 3000, the previous game to this in the critically acclaimed SimCity series? In that game, you could make farms, but it worked in this way. You had to make light industry. I mean, in this game, light industry is farms, but in SimCity 3000, light industry could be farms, or it could be just regular industry, and heavy and medium industry were all regular industry. But the thing is, you had to build it far out from your city, far out from any development. The land value had to be low and the roads had to be small and all this stuff. And then maybe, just maybe, you would have farms. So cool, you have farms. But you start playing the game and your city encroaches on a farm a little too close, or the land value gets a little too high, or the traffic gets a little too high. Well, you know what happens? Your farms, which are so pretty and rural looking, are going to turn into ugly, regular light industry. And once that happens to one farm, a chain reaction will make that happen to every farm that it's next to until what was pristine farmland has turned into nasty, ugly industry. It's a real bummer. I'm sure glad that they changed that for this here SimCity 4. I remember in SimCity 4, SimCity 2000, back in those old days, I wondered why there were no farms. I even asked my dad at one point, which is kind of random considering that he never played that nor any other video game. But he was like, "Oh, well, it's called SimCity for a reason. It's supposed to be a city." But I did something that I'm sure that a lot of you did too. Is like you just made a zone, maybe light industrial, and just didn't ever put power to it, and you just declared it a field. Because I know I did that, because it was just like the sort of the checkered light yellow-ish color that was there was the closest you could get to the color of like a wheat field or something. So I'd make that and I'd be like, it's a farm. I have made a farm. And then that evolved into SimCity 3000, in which you could make farms but they wouldn't last, and then to this game where you could make farms, legit farms, and that was that. I don't know what any future SimCities would have done, because SimCity 4 was the last SimCity game ever made. I know, right? I'm surprised too. It's been 10 years. You thought they would have tried to make another one by now. Oh god, we got a fire. We got a fire here. Come on, put out the fire at this abandoned house. Well, now I know an area that doesn't have fire coverage. But yes. Yeah. I'm sort of surprised they didn't make any more SimCity games after 2003. Just like I'm surprised that George Lucas didn't make any more Star Wars movies after 1983. I mean, it was a real good trilogy. You would have thought that he would have come up with something else after that. It's been 30 years. But I'm afraid to say Return of the Jedi was the last Star Wars movie ever made, just like SimCity 4 was the last SimCity game ever made. It's weird.